Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's conversation on purpose-driven leadership, public-private collaboration, and building for the future here at Amulya's Corner. We're honored to be joined by Una Pulizzi, Global Head of Corporate Affairs at Kyndryl and President of the Kyndryl Foundation. Una has led sectors from the U.S. Treasury to the World Bank, GE, and now Kyndryl, bringing policy, communications, and impact together with a deep commitment to equity and systems change. Welcome, Una.
Thank you. This is so exciting to be here. Appreciate it.
So my first question for you is that you've led across sectors from the Treasury to the World Bank to GE and now Kyndryl, navigating policy, corporate strategy, and social impact. What would you say unifies your work across these roles, and what does purpose-driven leadership mean to you today?
Great question. Okay, so as I reflect back on my career, and something that I feel really strongly about, which is demonstrating curiosity.
Mhm.
And what I mean by that is I didn't set out in my life to say I'm going to work for this company. I'm going to be this role. Let's go. That's not how I approach this. I decided to collect experiences. And why? Because I was curious about what those experiences would give me from a professional development perspective, from a maturing perspective, from a just kind of teaching me something along the way. I've also really loved getting to know inspirational leaders. That's probably another cross piece of all of those experiences I've had. And then I think just complicated issues. I love detangling complicated issues. And when I say issues, that sounds like it's a problem. That's not necessarily a problem. So when I joined Kyndryl, for example, um, we it was before the spin, but I was hired to be part of the spin, to be part of Kyndryl. And like, look, spinning a company, setting up a function, kind of getting the basics in place, getting the team in place, maturing the function, doing all of those things, really, really, really complicated, incredibly rewarding. Again, another cross section, another kind of horizontal for me is this idea of working for companies and leaders that have purpose.
Mhm.
And I think in all of the experiences I've had, I've found that. I have looked for it and I have found it. And that's been really important. Not only important for me, as I chose to take and have that experience, but more importantly, in a lot of places I trusted it was there. I got into it and I found it.
Right.
And that taught me something as well.
Mhm. And that's really I feel like trust is a big thing for me as well, and so trust in the institution, trust in a leader can really drive change, and so it's all about building trust here at Girl Security as well. I know the Kyndryl Foundation supports cybersecurity and AI scaling across 11 countries, and the broader company supports like social impact work beyond the foundation. In your view, what does a truly inclusive workforce development program look like? One that transforms not just careers, but on a holistic level, lives.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to start with a North Star. And I think for us at the Kyndryl Foundation, we really focused on economic inclusion and economic advancement as like a grounding objective for us. And then how do you get there? Well, workforce development and is the place you can invest. Making sure that people feel that they're empowered to take on new challenges, but also, quite frankly, empowered to improve their lives. So the touchstone for me is this economic advancement thought. And if you do that right, that concept, that touchstone, it can travel. And what I mean by that, you know, that's something that can work in a Japanese context. It can work in an Indian context in the US, fill in the blank. And I think that then it really just becomes what is the thing that we are able to put forward. And so, you know, Kyndryl is a technology services company. We run mission critical systems. Security, cybersecurity, and resiliency is critical to running those systems. And we know from our research that cybersecurity is a top concern for organizations. 70% of organizations feel they are not ready for cyber risk. And so that's something that we work with and around every single day as a professional topic. And so as we looked at this concept of economic advancement, the cybersecurity underpinnings and the fact that we have skills obviously internal to Kyndryl, but we have the skills that we have within the company. Those things came together, and so when we looked at the foundation, we really we really felt this was a place we could go. And I can point there's a program that we started in India, and it was really focused on training women in rural and remote communities on cybersecurity. I mean, these are women who might be entrepreneurs, they might be kind of, managing their families. And it was a way to kind of help them jumpstart their careers. And also, by the way, it was a way for these village women to improve their standing within communities. If you think about it, if you have a skill that you are able to teach to others, I mean, that is a confidence builder, that gives you more credibility within the community. So all of these things came together. And, thus far, we've trained 50,000 women as part of this program. And I think in many ways, this idea of economic advancement is like there. It's like in the middle of that.
That was really helpful because you talked about something, that is really important to me, and a little bit you touched on identity a little bit. And I think that, when you're playing and you're uplifting and you're including identity as a core part of, why people enter cybersecurity, and I think that is so sustainable and very structural. And I think that representation is so important because when you see someone up there that looks like you, man, it does wonders. So
I can only I mean, look, I know that's true. I know that's true. I mean, we've seen it. We see it over and over again.
representation is a pretty persistent challenge, particularly in national security and tech. And
Yeah.
so, what do you think are shifts that you believe are necessary beyond like surface level inclusion to change the game per se?
I think that we have to look at this longer term. And I think a lot of the technology skills that are needed, we're gonna need to build them in a way that they themselves are flexible. I mean, who knew 2 years ago that the emergence of AI was going to play such an incredible role today? I mean, I think that in order to kind of get to where we need to get to on things in the technology space, we need a set of people to come in that have different experiences, that bring different skill sets, but also different pathways in. Because not only is the need big, it is also an incredibly dynamic field, and the diversity that we see of people with experiences and backgrounds is going to help kind of build what you call that sustainable path. Um, Without it, I think there's huge risk, honestly. And so for us, our support, for instance, of girl security is really important because it means that girls and boys too, girls that we're bringing people in and we're building resilience within this really important future need, present and future need. And if we don't do it that way, then like in a dynamic environment like this, I think we're missing a trick, and I think it's a risk.
Absolutely. And it's all about building that pipeline and making sure that they are supported like in their journey and as they make changes and things like that. And so I'm about to ask you, I think my favorite question that I've developed. And
Okay.
you are a classically trained violinist, right?
Yeah.
And so I want to know that is such a beautiful and unique part of your story. How has your creative background helped shape the way you lead, take risks, and or think about resilience?
So I'm going to answer it two ways. One, so I was the child of immigrants who had come here, and they my mother wasn't, sadly, she's passed, but she was an incredibly cultured woman and felt very strongly that we would be amazing violinists. So this was just something she decided. So that was that. So it's not a choice I made necessarily, to be super clear. But I will say, my mother started me when I was 3.
Mhm,
I did the Suzuki method, and I don't know if you're familiar with the Suzuki method. It's really deep, intense ear training, plus this belief that anyone can play an instrument and be excellent at it if if they practice, and there's the listening element. So anyway, this is the whole method. And so we did it, with rigor, I would say. And there are two answers to your question. One is it taught me rigor.
right.
It taught me how to prepare,
Mhm,
how to perform, and how to I mean, just to how do you start with a literally you don't know the notes on the page, how to get from there to performing something beautiful.
mhm,
So there is a method, there's a rigor to it, discipline, I would say. So that's one
mhm,
answer. The other answer comes a little later. So I went to school, I went to university in Nashville.
mhm.
And when I got to Nashville's this crazy music town. Like really, like, a lot happening,
Mhm,
and you can do anything, and if you got a little talent, you can probably play with it. I mean, like, it's up to you, right? So, I decided to get involved with bands in Nashville, which was such a wacky decision to make, but I said, I'm just gonna do that. I'm curious, I'm gonna try this, like, this is something I'm gonna go do, and the amount of a the amount that I had to adapt to really lean into ear training, to dig deep into a creative side that had to have existed in there in order to be able to perform with these bands was really, really, like, I would say, life altering in many ways. I mean, the idea that I would, I got it. I learned the method. I learned how to prepare. I got you. But then to be thrown into a situation where there's no preparation. I mean, sure, you can maybe listen to the music before you go in there, but it's all up here. It's all in your head. It's all in your ear. And then you have to figure out the line and listen to the line and figure out how to step up and below the line, and then how to make that compelling to your audience in live. Just do it. And so so there are two stories to what violin has brought me as a professional, and I think both are really important. I mean, they came at different stages in my life. I would say the rigor came earlier, the technique, I mean, really nailing that. But then later, with that technique, with that rigor here, I was able to then do more of the creative and the real intense ear training and dig deep. And that that has served, frankly, I feel has served me well too. And by the way, there is a lesson to this, which is not every Suzuki child should be a Suzuki mother.
mhm.
I have 2 kids, and I had them do the Suzuki method as well. Both very talented, but at a certain point, basically everyone said, "We're done with you, mom. Like we're done. We're done." So it sometimes doesn't work, but they remain very musical and very talented as well. But nonetheless, I did manage to get fired from my kids, but that's
Oh
okay.
my.
That's okay.
It sounds a lot like you had to really adapt to the music in your environments and really improvise, and I think maybe I should pick up violin is what I'm hearing perhaps.
It gives you a lot. I don't know. I would advocate for it. Yeah.
I have one last question for you.
Sure.
That is, finally, looking ahead, what type of legacy do you hope the Kyndryl Foundation and your leadership will leave for the next generation of change makers?
You know, as a company that spun from another company to really build an identity, to transform a company, to build a culture, to transform a strategy. and drive and drive and drive. These are really, really important things. And we very early, like within our second year, first year, you're just trying to build your team. You're trying to, you got to get, you got to put basics in place, the rhythms and processes that you need to run a company, right?
Right.
Um, within the second year, though, and very early, we said this is important. This is legacy making, as you allude to. We're gonna do this. Like there's a lot of things we need to do, but this is important, and we're gonna do this. And so that's im- that's important to make a choice like that very early on. It speaks to the culture that we as a company are building and continue to build to this day. Restless, empathetic, devoted. These are things that, are legacy making, in that we believe that to operate with purpose, to engage with purpose, to engage with a number of stakeholders with purpose, with our customers with purpose, with our employees with purpose, with our communities with purpose, that these things matter. And so while I answered a little bit from a Kyndryl perspective, I do see these two things happening kind of parallel. Um, and the choices that you make when you start out and spin a company that has a lot of stuff you got to work on, they matter too. And they speak to your employees. The choices you make speak to your employees. They speak. And I will say that the empathy and devotion to shared success, these are things that are like in our culture. They th- our employees look to our work with the foundation as critical and emblematic of that. So culture, foundation, engagement, purpose with communities, they all kind of they come together in a very deliberate way, by the way.
And I really like the empathy part of it because I truly try to make every choice, every decision, my relationships, I try to move with empathy because I think that makes a monumental decision in the outcome. And, I really resonate that. I also resonate with the pay it forward mindset because I feel like I've personally benefited from a lot of valuable relationships and wisdom in my life who, have helped me succeed and been my support system, honestly.
Mm,
And so I love the pay it forward mindset because, bring people up with you, build your support system. And I think that is so, so important.
absolutely. No, absolutely. You said it very beautifully, Maya. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, Una, I just want to thank you so much for sharing your story and your wisdom with us. I think that your career is so powerful, a powerful example of how leadership can be grounded in purpose, creativity, and community, and it can help drive really great change. So, to our listeners, stay tuned for more conversations here at Amelia's Corner. And always stay curious, stay courageous, and stay connected. Thank you.